Okay, part 2 of file structure for core training. Scenario 1, storing your files in My Documents. And here's what I would say. If your laptop is new and not cluttered with files, or you are very good with file structure, then this is an acceptable location to store files. However, I would avoid using the inventor file that shows up inside of My Documents. And let's see what that looks like if you haven't used Inventor very much. If your computer is fairly new, and you go to your PC, into your documents, you will see that there is an Inventor file that shows up there. And I have prerequisite training files in a file folder there. But you can see that I don't have a lot of files in this folder. If you have a bunch of files in this folder, then, because you've been using your laptop for a while or it's somebody else's computer, then you may not want to put things there. And you want to probably avoid using the Inventor folder directly on your C drive. And we'll talk about that in a later segment. Okay? So, how do you know you're good with file organization? So, in 20 years of teaching, you never delete anything, and you can find 3 versions of differentiated exit ticket quizzes from chapter 6.4 on properties of logarithms for a class you haven't taught in 11 years. There are some teachers that would describe, where you know exactly where everything is because you have been very organized with your files. If you are not very organized with your files, you're probably going to want to pick something simpler, like as in scenario 2. Scenario 2 is storing your files on your desktop. And this is very simple. Files will be easy to find and navigate, provided that you put all files in a single folder. Do not save individual files directly to the desktop. Always save files to a core training folder on your desktop. Okay, and we'll see what that looks like here. I have an example of that, 2018 Purdue core training. Okay. Scenario 3. Storing your files to an external drive. If your drive is too small, or you're on your laptop, your hard drive space, or your district has installed a program like Clean Slate that wipes the computer every time you reboot, then you are stuck saving to an external drive. This is not the best case scenario because you have now opened up the opportunity for a core training nightmare. You could forget to eject the disk and corrupt all the files. And that only happens one time out of 100, but it always happens at the most inopportune time. You could forget to bring your drive to class or misplace it when packing things up. I had one participant several years ago who left his flash drive on his desk, not once, not twice, but 4 times over the course of 2 weeks of core training. So he was always having to redo things and really struggled because he left it behind. Scenario 4 is using Google Apps with Google Backup and Sync or with Google File Stream. Now again, I said this earlier, you cannot use just Google Docs online. These apps work in parallel with the online version of Google Drive. And this is what I do. But I also know how these apps work. I use Google Backup and Sync on my personal computers, and I use Google File Stream on my school computers. And if you want a dissertation on that, we can talk about it in person. But if you are new to these Google apps, core training is not the time to experiment because you need to understand fully how these apps operate or you will also have a nervous breakdown, because they can cause some problems if you don't use them correctly. For example, you could upload your entire video library and run out of space, or you could delete things and run out of space. And there's also some issues with file saving. So what you do need to do is you do need to make a decision about where you will store your files. And I gave you 4 options. So that will be the end of video number 2, and I will pick up with video number 3.